On today's episode of the Wholesale Daily Show, we're going to talk about what every wholesaler is going to go through, and that is firing contractors. No matter what you do, probably you're going to come across a deal that you're going to say to yourself, all right, I can make this much money if I wholesale it, but I can make this much money if I fix it and get top of the market. What's going to happen if you're new to this? The veterans on here know this all too well, but if you're new, there's going to come a point where you're going to have to fire contractors with the hottest flames available in the known universe.
Oh, that's intense, man.
And get rid of them fast.
Yeah.
And we've definitely fired a lot of contractors, and hopefully we won't have to fire many more, but I'm sure we'll have to. So we want to talk about that today. I'm Dustin.
I'm Josh.
I am Corey.
We're the Wholesale Daily Show. This is episode, we're into it now, what, 14, 15?
This is 15. This is
This is
milestone.
episode 15, milestone for us. Yeah. If you're just tuning in, give us a like on the YouTube, subscribe.
Yeah.
And podcasters listening,
Yep.
leave us a review. That'd be great. Well, let's dive into this because it's a very fun topic. And Josh has a lot of experience with firing contractors.
Would you call it fun, Josh?
Fun? I think it gets funner maybe the more you do it, but it's probably normally a result of something tragic that's happened. And usually at the time, the state of mind may not be the best.
Yeah.
But I think when it's not a result of something tragic, like you're not losing a lot of money, it might be a little bit fun.
So let's talk to these guys. Let's discuss today. All right. We're having people listening who may be in the middle of doing some rehabs or you're considering it. Let's talk about how these guys can use an ounce of prevention to prevent using a pound of cure.
Yeah. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is going to be timelines. So that's a really tricky one.
Okay.
I think there's probably a massive dichotomy in there.
Okay.
So here's a question. It's like, what are you going to do when you have a contractor and, you know, you have a commitment on the front end saying it's going to be this much money and this is what's getting covered and it's going to take this much time. So let's say they say that it's going to be 2 weeks, and at week 2, or maybe you check in. So preventative measures would be you check in constantly, right? And they may say something like, hey, we're 50% of the way, but without any evidence or proof, that may just be, you know, BS more or less. And so you got to make sure that whatever the timeline is, be checking up on them in increments. But even still, doing virtual real estate, there's been times that we've actually been duped. You know, we're told that they're this far, the photos look great, and then someone visually goes in and inspects it, somebody else, a different guy, and says, wow, like, what's going on? This is brutal. Yeah, like, what are you going to do when they're over and they say, you know, let's say you hit the time, they say it's just going to be a couple more days, and then it's a couple more days, and then it's a couple more days, and then it's a couple more days again. And that has happened consistently with people.
What if you tell them the story about the Arkansas property? Was that one of the worst?
I think Rapid Run's probably the worst because we've had that for
Tell
so
them
long.
that one then. As I mentioned, we like to share with you guys our horror stories as well. We bought a property almost a year ago
Yeah.
that has been cancerous.
I think it's more than a year ago now.
Yeah, it's been tough.
It's
We've been
probably
sitting on it a
more.
year, and
Yeah.
hopefully we break even on it.
Yeah.
So Josh, maybe extract the beautiful lessons that we've learned there.
Yeah. Okay. Here's probably the first lesson. We did a couple houses with this guy, and it was going well. And I think it's easy once you feel like you've got somebody who's doing well to overload them accidentally. It's been like, okay, you're doing good. Let's give you this. And next thing you know, they start to crumble and fall apart. But this guy did a couple good houses for us, and we had a great relationship, and he's doing this house. and things start to slow down a little bit. But he's like, sorry guys, just going through some stuff. I'm gonna pick it up. Since we got a previously existing relationship that's really good, it's like, okay. And the next thing you know, I'm getting the realtor to check up on it, and another 2 weeks have passed, still no progress. The next thing you know, he's taken off to a different state to work on something else. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And this is what happened. Fear kicked in, and I was like, we've got such a good price with this guy, and I want to make these returns. So do we cut the cord, or do we wait it out? He said he's going to be back in 2 weeks. So we wait it out. And he doesn't come back. And so it's like, do we cut the cord, or do we wait it out? He says, I'm so sorry, I'm getting delayed. I'll be back. And so it was fear, or maybe, I don't know if you would call it fear or greed, but obviously you want to maximize your returns. And so I knew that if I brought anybody else in to do it, it was going to cost more because we had such cheap labor with them. And it turns into longer and longer and longer. Somebody then breaks into the property and steals a whole bunch of stuff. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then that causes issues between me and the contractor because they stole some of his stuff, and we had never outlined how that looks. And so we ate a little bit of it. He ate a little bit of it because we had to pay a deductible. It was a pretty steep deductible. So then he comes back and he starts working on it, but he's super slow and still in the same position where I know if we bring somebody else in that it's going to be way more money. But by now, a couple months have actually passed. And next thing you know, he just kind of falls off the face of the earth. And so we should have fired him a long time ago. And then eventually we bring somebody else in and they finish the property and we end up paying more anyway. We also fired him too. So virtual real estate has definitely been tricky in that regard. And I think one of the issues is having someone take care of multiple aspects of a property versus having a specialized worker. So having a crew of painters come in to do the paint, roofers to come in and do the roofing, foundation specialists do the foundation, someone who's great with flooring or flooring or cabinets. Like cabinets have really been a nightmare. Yeah, and so it may cost, let's say, $200 less to get the labor done by the contractor, or to get it done, by someone who's specialized in that, maybe an extra like 10-15% to get a better job. There's been numerous times that cabinets have been hung and then rehung and then rehung.
Yeah.
And but I think the time one is a really big indicator. And someone who says that's going to be finished at this time, and if they don't hit that target, you could say 3 strikes you're out. But in this big world of a lot of people, like, would you guys be more inclined, like 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes? As far as time, and maybe do you think it depends on the severity?
We've been giving people like 12 strikes usually, so
in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's what we're sharing with you as we have learned many of these lessons the hard way. You really do have to become shrewd and not put up with any BS, and that's why you'll see people with contracts that are just very tight, very solid, and hey, these are the conditions. If you can't meet them, then take a hike, buddy.
It's tough. That's what we're learning.
So I think time, like in the present day, you could say in the past couple months, we've really tightened up on this, and we've got a project manager who handles the bulk of this, but it comes to us. And checks with us before he makes decisions, but we've really been tightening up on those. And we talk about how we do a lot of properties, and it's like, if you want to do business with us, give us a time frame, and maybe then, even if they say it's going to be this time, maybe ask them, well, is that really reasonable? Is that the best case scenario? Is that like leaving space for everything to go perfectly right? Because what kind of world in real estate does everything go right? It doesn't happen. And so you just might need to walk them through it too. Ask them a question, like, is this timeline that you've presented, is this leaving you any room for any issues or problems? And maybe it's not. So help set them up for success. But that's going to be a big one, because time is money, and you gotta you got to get in and out of the properties as quickly as possible. And it's super simple for them to kind of delay it. So what's a good way to keep them in check is to actually never pay them until the work is done, because a lot of times they may want to draw up front. They'll say, like, give me quarter to get started. And so when you give them quarter to get started, there's no incentive there because they've already got the money. And so if you have it set up where you're only paying them after the labor's completed, that's going to keep them more in check, and that kind of gives you the power because they're going to want to get paid. And so that's going to be a great way to keep them accountable. Because in the past, when we were, we used to just fly down every now and then. And so it felt like we didn't have a position of power, and a lot of people, it seemed, didn't want to do the work until they got paid because we were out of state. Yeah. But, seeing how many people are out there, it's really easy to feel like there's not a whole lot of good people to work with, which is a lie. And a lot of contractors will say, it's so hard to get someone. I'm the only good worker I know, it's kind of stuff like that. And at first you don't believe it, but maybe the more time you spend with them, you start to absorb and take their mindset. But it's not true. There's so many great contractors out there. You don't need to settle for someone that's not going to do things in a timely manner, that wants to do things like cheap, crappy, low quality labor. Don't feel like you have to stay with someone like that. So the moment you see subpar work, low quality work, or they don't do something they said they were going to do, check that really, really quickly. And you can decide how many strikes you give them. But we're kind of getting a little bit more aggressive in that, where we just don't put up with stuff. Yeah. But maybe like one really good slap on the wrist, and then maybe we try to be
one or two
reasonable. Yeah, but there's like a huge list of nightmares, or just people taking advantage of us because we're just trying to be generous, you could say, or reasonable, but got to be firm for sure.
Yeah. So we have folks listening right now. Where can they get a contract for contractors?
Yeah. Always, I think the best way, before even reviews, is finding people that are reputable in the real estate community there. So looking at the top realtors, you could call the top realtors and say, what are people that you've used before? Who are people that you recommend? And, using reviews on Angie's List, Home Outfitters, something like that, is a good one. Because like Craigslist, you can find people, but make sure that they've got reviews somewhere. Or you can talk to people that have previously done work for them. But I think word of mouth will be the first best one. Our realtor's got a whole bunch of great contacts, people he's been using for years, or people that he's known in the industry for years. Or talking to people at your local real estate meetup, the REI groups. That's going to be a great place as well. Word of mouth, people that are good, their reputation will precede them. And, someone who says, I've got tons of reviews, I've got all these people that love me, and then they can't really show the evidence, or they don't have anything to support that, major red flag. Especially the people that are always available, like guys that are, they never have anything to do, yet everybody loves them, and they've done incredible work, and they've got all these raving reviews. That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The people who are good are usually booked up. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the times when you want your work done, you want it done fast and effective, right? And that is, that's one of the catch-22s on this. So that's where so much of the relationship comes in, kind of the trial and error. But if you can go and kind of implement and take the tips out of this and try to at least learn from some of our mistakes and avoid some of them yourself, you'll be ahead of the game. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do a rehab, there's going to be a learning curve until you really get multiple rehabs under your belt. So
yeah, probably the best way is to get a house with a ton of equity, and the only way to do that is to find motivated sellers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Remember, if you're listening to this on the podcast or on YouTube and you are looking for some motivated sellers, well, we know that cold calling is one of the best ways to generate motivated sellers, but yet it is probably the most difficult thing to do. And we have actually cracked the code on that, and we have a full all-in-one cold calling sales floor that provides motivated seller leads to wholesalers like yourself all across the country. So if you want to add the power of cold calling and generate leads that way, we can do that for you. And these leads are typically less expensive than your direct mail leads and higher qualified. So if you're listening on the podcast, hop over to modernrei.com. We got a video there. We'll get you more details on how we can provide you leads. If you're on Instagram, type the word leads into the comments. No?
Remember, direct message us.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. If you're on Instagram, direct message us the word leads. And we'll get you some information. YouTube, comment leads.
Yeah.
Can help you out. It's a really powerful thing, cold calling, but it's very difficult. And we're able to provide leads all over the U.S.
Oh.
So, type the word leads or direct message. Corey's beautiful diagram. Please subscribe, leave a comment if you're listening, and we will see you tomorrow.